The Living Dead Museum presents an Evil Dead 2 event with Q&A panel from Evil Dead and Creepshow FX animator Rick Catizone at the Historic Monroeville Mall. All right, Pittsburgh Steelman here. I'm at the Monroeville Mall, and I'm here for a special screening of the Evil Dead 2 with Rick Catizone. Yes. All right, let's go check it out. There it is, an evening with Rick Catizone. Oh yeah, here we go. Oh, check it out. We got the Easter Bunny. Here he is. It's down here at Time and Space Toys. Oh yeah, my favorite toy store here in all of Pittsburgh. Right on. Evening with Rick Catizone. Oh yeah, Evil Dead 2 event. Got my ticket, I got my wristband. All right, here we go. All right, we're here. Oh yeah. Oh, check it out here. Here's Mr. Catizone. Look at that, the artist who did that. Look at that. That's old school, baby. That's gonna come back someday. Look at that. We're in for a treat tonight. We got Evil Dead 2 on. We got Mr. Catizone here. Oh yeah, it's gonna be awesome. Check that out. Artifacts. Evil Dead 2 cabin set. Oh yeah, all these little pieces of wood in the cabin. Oh yeah, good stuff. Oh, when they're gone, they're gone. $20. Just $20. A piece of the movie. Oh. Army of Darkness, yeah, okay. Yeah, that was good. We got Fluffy, life-size bust. Oh yeah, Shelly, the Disco Skelly. Good stuff here. Good Army of Darkness video. Evil Dead 2, Necronomicon. Yeah. Skull, candles, skulls. Oh yeah, we got plenty of skeletons here. Oh yeah, baby. Some previews before the film starts. Classic. Oh, of course. That's why. The Mayans. All right, nice crowd here to see Rick Catizone. His book's selling like hotcakes here, that's for sure. Oh, there's some familiar faces in here. Oh, there it is, the hand from Evil Dead 2. Oh yeah, it's a skeleton. It's inside that special effect. Oh, Rick's gonna talk about it for sure.
There's two screens tonight for the movie screening. There's one in the back that's bigger and quieter, and then there's this one. You can, after the Q&A's over here, you can figure out where you want to sit for the movie. And in the room in the middle, there's some merchandise, and there's some popcorn and drinks, and of course, the man of the evening, Mr. Rick Catizone, who's the animator.
Yeah.
It's called An Evening with Rick Catizone, and this is the evening, and this is Rick. Rick did the animation for Henrietta and for Ash's hand in Evil Dead, and lots of other animation and other projects, which I'm sure he'll be happy to talk to you about. I first met Rick from his work with Night of the Living Dead, she also worked on for quite a long time about that as well. So I guess we'll just get on with all this. And how's that? Here he is, Mr. Catizone.
Yeah, all right.
Well, thanks for coming out. Anybody want to start with a question? Or I'll relay some stuff first if nobody has an immediate question. But Mike?
Quick story about 247 Fort Pitt Boulevard.
The Animators, which was the animation company I worked with before I started my own company, was over on Liberty Avenue, and we were doing work with George and Russ, and they were over at Fort Pitt Boulevard. And so at some point, I don't know if it's because the rent went up or we decided we were doing so much work together, it was easier to move over there to save us travel time back and forth across town. So we wound up moving in there. We were on the second floor. George, some of you already know probably, but he had his studio space down on the first floor. Then they had their offices up on the fifth floor. So, beyond that, anything exciting? No.
What about the basement?
When I went down the basement of the farmhouse, that's the basement of 247 Fort Pitt Boulevard, which I guess most fans know by now as well. But, you know, when you're not expecting to see that, and you see something you know, it always throws me. Like there was another shot, and there's always Vanilla or one of George's other movies, and they look out George's window on the fifth floor, and you don't see across to Mount Washington, you're looking down in Gateway Center. It's like, whoa, what? That's not the view from George's office. So, yeah. Thanks. Well, let me relate, anybody? Or I'll relate something.
I got one.
Go ahead.
Talk a little bit about your fight coordination for the movie The Crazies.
Okay, it was short and sweet, but Bill Heinzman, who was a good friend and also did commercials together, he said, hey, there's a fight scene in this, and I know you're into all that karate stuff. How about coming out and doing a fight scene? And I said, well, I'll make it jiu-jitsu and karate. He said, I don't care what it is, just so I went up there and I worked with the actors for like, I don't know, 45 minutes or an hour so they wouldn't kill me. And the technique I wanted to do is, you know, I would throw a punch, he would come outside block, he would break my arm, then do other things to me. And I had to really stress, I said, now I'm going to be completely vulnerable for this to look right. I said, I need you not to break my arm. And he was good, he didn't break my arm. He came close, and I had some really thin, if you want to call it body armor, it wasn't really, but back in those days, we had some lightweight sparring armor, which had like bamboo, which didn't really stop much. But it was enough to, you know, keep me from getting my wrist broken whenever he hit me. But yeah, it was a fun thing to do. It was real quick. It's cut kind of funny in the movie. It's not sequential, so it looks like it took forever for him to do away with me. And then after that shot, I was starting to take my uniform. Oh, the other thing. It was cold. I forget when the shot. I don't know if it was October. It was cold, and so you're steaming up inside this hooded mask. So half the time I couldn't even really tell where he was. It was just I was aiming for him, and I was hoping he wouldn't kill me. And after that, he said, "Well," I started taking off. He said, "Well, just stay in it." And I said, "What for?" And he said, "Well, I need somebody to be on the shot. And you get to be on camera." It's like, I don't want to be on camera. It's like, well, you're never on camera, so be on camera. So that's me on the ground getting slapped around. That's the other part too. He said, now the actor, I forget who it was, you guys know, but it's like, I'm going to slap you around a little bit. Okay. You know, there's some training you just can't break, you know, so I'm supposed to be out of it, so I'm on the ground and I'm like, and every time his hand came, my hand actually try to block at the same time, let him sort of be rough, but not really let him land anything serious. So it was fun. Different. I don't usually, I'm never on camera, I'm always behind the camera. Till you think of some other things, most everybody knows the hand, and that's kind of what part of my fame on Evil Dead 2 was, but that came about because originally in the movie Creepshow, there was to be a crawling hand. Whenever Ted Danson comes back from the watery grave, he reaches into the bathroom in the original version. And when he slammed the door, because the corpse had been underwater and desiccated, the arm was going to get severed about here, and then it was going to crawl around, attack him, strangle him, and so on. So I did some tests. Tom cast my arm, and I designed to build the armature to go inside. And then I shot some different tests, crawling along. He started walking on his fingertips, and we did that. And then he said, okay, we need a price. Well, I had to send some of the shots to go to LA to have an optical done to put it together with a live action, and that wasn't cheap in those days because we weren't digital. So I said, okay, I think I quoted him like $7,500, which was really cheap. And they said, oh, we don't have that kind of money. And I said, well, then I can't do it, you know. And they said, well, you know, we'll think of something else. And besides the hand with Michael Caine had just come out, and something else had a crawling hand. So we don't really, maybe we shouldn't do a crawling hand. And of course, what they came up with was 9 times, 100 times better, because it really was like the old DC comics. You think you get away, and when you turn around, they're inside the room. So that was great.
Okay.
So anyways, I had this. My old pal Mike Tursig, who moved down to work on Evil Dead 2, saw that there was a crawling hand, and he said, oh, let me show you this test Rick did for Creepshow. And so he showed him that, and I said, well, let's get Rick down here to do the hand. So I went down and met with him, and then came back, and we worked out a price, and so I did the crawling hand shots. And then that kind of expanded into some close-ups of Henrietta, then the Henrietta with the neck row and the face changes. So that was a set of maybe about 9 different heads changing from possessed Henrietta to more possessed Henrietta. And that was a really hard shot. Well, I got 2 hard shots. Okay, so the crawling hand stuff. The scene I did down in their studio in North Carolina, I had to do that one because, you know, it was a room, well, not quite this big, but it was a big room. And so there was no way to build that in my studio. And I couldn't do it as a rear projection shot because it just couldn't take it in and have it run up that way. So I went down there to do it, which meant it was a long shot. So I'm behind the camera. For every frame of film, I have to walk in about 20 feet, crouch down, stay crouched down, move each one of the little digits on each finger, and advance the hand a little bit, then walk 20 feet back out of the shot, take a picture, then walk back in, stay crouched down while they did all those movements and stuff. So I think it took about 3 hours. I did it after midnight when the rest of the crew was done shooting. The next morning, I wanted to get something to eat. This hotel motel we were at wasn't there anything. And I said to the guy, is there like a convenience store somewhere that I can run down to? And he said, oh man, he said, it's like 2 miles away. It's like, I do martial arts. I play soccer 5 times a week. I think I'll be okay. So I walked down there. About halfway there, my eyes were burning like crazy. And I'm going, what's going on? I'm in shape. What happened? Then I realized I had spent almost 3 hours crouched.
Okay.
Really took it from the legs. In the Henrietta transformation scene, the camera jam, which I found out after I did 4 or 5 hours of shooting of that whole sequence. So I had to come in the next day and redo that whole shot. So in the beginning, I shot it backwards because the neck has to grow. But it also has to have an armature inside so I can animate it. So I made 2 different necks. One has wire, and after it would grow all the way, I would make an indication of how it was sitting in the frame, take that one out, bring in the armature neck and position it exactly where that one was, and then continue the shot. And so the first time I shot it backwards, cutting away part of the neck, lowering the head. And of course, to keep the head framed, that means I have a little stage set up, and I'm lowering that stage a little bit at a time as well. And then the background was very projected footage. They had it tilted up. So I shot it all, and since it didn't work, the next day I came in. Luckily, I was very careful in what I did. I started adding the sections back on and shot it forward, built the neck up, and pushed the wire up, put the head on, added a section, pushed the wire up. Next had the changes, and then finished animation. Okay, your turn. Questions? One last thing I want to make sure I tell you. So if you look through my book, which doesn't just cover Evil Dead 2, but if you look in there and you say, oh, I want to see the pictures of the armature, and you go to the Evil Dead 2 chapter, you'll see the Henrietta armature and the behind-the-scenes photos, but the hand armature photos are in Creepshow because it was originally designed to be in Creepshow. So if you pick it up and go, oh, I don't know if I want that because it doesn't have the hand in it, it's in there. It's just in the Creepshow. So in fact, I forgot that one time. Somebody said, show me the hand. It's like, where's that? I know I put it in the book. It's like, that's right. It's in Creepshow because that was where it first was done. Anybody? Anything?
I have a question.
Yeah.
What's your favorite thing that you've created?
I don't really have a favorite thing. I guess one of the things I like probably the most is the fact that Creepshow or Creepshow 2, we did so much animation compared to the first film. And I designed the characters and animated most of it. I had in-betweeners too, but obviously, I did all the animation on the Creep, a couple shots of Venus flytrap plants, Mr. Haig the postman, flying demons, the package unwrapping, lots of stuff. But I couldn't do everything. I wanted to do everything. I actually wanted to do the whole Venus flytrap thing because the whole monsters I could do Venus flytrap. And when I saw, we didn't get the Creep's design. Okay, so the Creep is the main character. He has the most screen time. I kept saying, I need this to start. I was like, well, find some other scenes you can work on until we finish the makeup guys getting the Creep worked out. And it took forever and ever, and they weren't happy, I guess. Finally, they called one day and said, all right, since it's mostly animation, how about you design the Creep, and we'll make the makeup match what you do. So I sculpted a maquette of the Creep, and then I did a set of model sheets of it at one point. But it took a long time, and but you know, I had the most control of everything, I guess, and got to do so much of it. Most of the model sheets, most of the design, most of the animations. That's really kind of special. And to work with Mike Warnick again, we've been friends for 50 years.
Just a question. Yeah. I always wondered this. Whose idea was it to change the way the Creep looked? Like the Creep went drastically to a different version of the Creep from 1 to 2. And where did that come from? Was it anything to do with that?
So the first place, yes, I did. But first place, everybody compares Creepshow 2 to Creepshow. Now, Creepshow, I think, had a budget of about $8 million, and Creepshow 2 had less than half, maybe a third. And Mike did an amazing job pulling it off. But he told them, and I never knew this till much later, but he told them, he said, I can't do all these live action stories. We don't have the budget. He said, you have to give me more animation. He said, so they started redesigning more animation into it. And the reason the Creep looks like he does in the second film, which is actually more EC, especially with the puns and stuff. I mean, you guys didn't grow up with EC, but I did. Until my dad took them away, just like they did in the movie. So my dad, I was having nightmares, and my dad said, what are you reading? You know, where'd you get those? Well, Uncle Vernon gave them to me. So, well, that's it. But the Creep had long dialogue passages. I mean, 25 seconds, 20 seconds, 30-second pieces of dialogue. And I said to him, Mike, it's not going to work with the original Creep design because it's a skeleton. So, I mean, even in the first film, it didn't have to do much. So, but we cheated so it looked like the eyebrows moved, but of course they're gone. They can't. And he kind of grins, but you can't do lip movement because there's no lips, and you can't do phonetics without lips. So it would have looked like a ventriloquist dummy where the bottom part just opens and closes. And he's got all this dialogue, and I thought, it's just going to look so stupid. It's not, you know, I didn't want it to be my book. That was one part of it. Why don't we, you know, I said, can I just have like some rotting flesh on there to, you know, have some kind of lips, and maybe we could rot off the side of his face. And I need some lips, and I want to be able to use the brows because that's your main expression along with the eyes. And he said, well, why don't we, you know, he said, there were 5 different storytellers in the old books. Why don't we do some kind of conglomeration to that? So we tried to design something that was in the vein of DC, but without being any one of their specific characters. So I tried to take it, I like the old witch. I wanted to kind of do a witch character with the long hook nose, but I couldn't do that because, you know, the nose gets in the way of dialogue and it's hard to make it look appealing. So, because the nose will come out further this way, but they all had the big jaw and, you know, bony brows and stuff. So it's kind of formula, but not, because you can't get too close or you get sued. Right? It's like, oh, you stole that from EC, and then somebody wants to sue you. So it was fun to do, but it took a while. Same way with the Venus flytraps. We kept trying to design them, but I said, but I wanted to feel like a cobra striker. You know? And I said, well, you can't, because the actual design, the actual thing, the head's off angle and weird. It's not, you know, centered like a snake. And so Gary, or maybe Ron, said, started doing some sketching. What if we just stuck it this way? Who's going to care? You know, it's a giant Venus flytrap. And I said, yeah, I like that. It's working. So we wound up making it into that serpentine.
Here's your package, Billy. COD, $9.99. Mighty expensive for a toy ordered out of a funny paper.
Creepshow is not a funny paper, and this is no toy.
Well, what is it then?
It's a Venus flytrap bulb.
A Venus what bulb?
Venus flytrap. It's a plant that eats meat.
All that stuff's a cheat. Those are probably just petunia bulbs.
I don't think so, Mr. Haig.
I'm sorry. Uh-oh.
Better look out, he's getting mad.
Watch out, he might cry on you.
He might tell his mom on you.
What you gonna do with this? Plant it and grow more pansies like yourself?
Gimme. Give me it or else. What? You'll find out, pimple face.
I want his ass. Kid, I'm gonna put you in traction. Get ready for some serious pain.
Serious pain. flytraps. Giant Venus flytraps. They eat meat.
So back to I didn't get the creep. We started in July. We had to be done by January, maybe mid-January, end of January, latest. But there was all this creep stuff. I never got the creep design until I designed it in October, maybe mid-October. So then I had all this work to do, so I couldn't do all the flytrap stuff. So I picked the scenes I wanted to do, because the main scene that I really wanted to do was the one where they fight over the kid after they pick him up. Because I had in my mind this timing where, one would grab it and then the other would grab it and they'd kind of go back and forth. But then the smarter plant would let go and then go after it and wind up with the whole kid. So that was kind of the idea. I animated that one other shot in there. No question.
Any Evil Dead 2 questions? That's what we're here tonight about.
Yeah.
Were you also performing the hand?
No.
No?
I don't know if that was Ted or somebody else on the crew. They sent me the mold of the hand, which actually the post office destroyed. So I had to get reimbursed and we got to reimburse. Yeah, I don't know whose hand it was, but I know it was smaller than mine, because when I got the mold, this one was made based off of my hand, which I don't have huge hands, but I have sizable hands, I guess. And whoever they used, maybe it was Ted or somebody else, it was smaller than mine, so of course the joints have to bend in exactly the right place, so I had to remachine some of the finger joints to the smaller lengths to make it work so it wouldn't bend in the wrong place.
Did we ever cast Ted Danson's hand?
No.
Did it never made that far?
This never got past a test, because Tom said, hey, we want to do this part of stop motion. I said, oh, cool. And so he said, well, we'll do, I don't even know if Ted was on the film. This was really early on. It was right after, I think it was right after I did the sculpt of Fluffy's hands and feet, and chest. I think it was after that. And so he said, well, we'll just cast your hands just for the test, it won't matter. Besides, who knows if it's Ted Danson's hand, right? Anybody got a picture of Ted Danson's hand you can get there to see? I mean, do we know if that's Bruce Campbell's hand?
I was going to ask you who has a bigger hand, Bruce or Ted.
So that, it just worked out. The other shot I was down there that saw, I went down on flew in on a Friday morning, and I got to see them shooting the scene where the vines go under her skin and wrap all over her. Pretty cool. They shot it backwards, and I think they were pulling either her or her and the camera on a tarp, because they were pulling it through the room, and of course the vines were already under the makeup, and they were pulling them out. It was done reverse, so they could crawl up and stuff. It was kind of freaky to watch, but it looked pretty cool.
How often were you able to reuse any of your prosthetics?
Well, I didn't do any of the prosthetic work, but a lot of times they're fresh because they get mangled or the heat gets to them and they put them on. So I don't really know, but I mean, as far as my work, the only thing I ever saved out of them is the armatures, because you can always find a way to use parts generally, unless they're really specific. Like this was so specific. I mean, I could use some of the joints in another puppet. I mean, they could become an arm on a smaller puppet or something.
said that the hand for you there took 2 to 3 hours and Henrietta took 4 to 5. Just to put it in perspective, how many shots did you guys do there?
Well, you're working at film speed for theatrical, which is 24 frames a second. So for every second of action you want, you've got to do 24 individual movements.
Nice.
Yeah, I guess you have to do it.
Yeah. So if it's, it's a 10-second shot, you're 240 frames. I did some stop motion with a giant plant creature a couple years back for somebody, and it was difficult. It's been a long time, and you're sitting there and you're going up and moving every part on the plant, the neck, every one of the arms that are waving, the vines. It's
That's hard nowadays because there's a computer and it does its thing. And,
well, the computer doesn't do anything. Okay, so that was the first thing that happened. Where's Will? Oh, so first thing I had to do when we designed the animation program was to tell them, computers don't animate anything. Everybody, they watch and think, oh look, the computer's animated. Computers don't do anything. Computers do math. And by this point, they do it really, really well. But they don't really animate. Now there's some things like water and effects that they finally got worked out. That's cool. But character animation, you kind of have to go in and do it. A computer does in between, straight. So if I have my arm here, and I wanted to throw a baseball, and I do this pose, and I do this pose, it does math. But if I wanted to throw to be this way, then I've got to put in probably a position up here and there, and a position up here, and a position here, so that it does more of the art. And then you still have to go in. So it does certain things, but the animator doesn't.
We have time for about one more question.
I'm just curious, I never asked you before, how did you get started? Did you start with traditional hand-drawn? Did you start with stop motion?
When I was, I wanted to be a comic book artist, and that was my goal, so I would sit there and draw comic characters. But in 1962 or 3, Famous Monsters did a 3-part article on Ray Harryhausen. And of course I loved all those films. This was the first time they showed how big the models really were, and somebody went in and actually posed them and animated them, and I went, that's what I want to do. So then I started experimenting in my basement. I come home, do all my homework, go downstairs, shoot for 3 hours, come back up. Next night, same thing. Eventually, I took that film down to the animators, and they said, look, this kid's crazy, let's hire him. Well, he didn't say it right away, it's pretty much the He told me, he said, if you can do that on that equipment, which was no equipment, he said, if you can do, like I did some rear projection shots too, he said, if you can do that with no equipment, I know you can do some really cool stuff with one cap. So I got it.
The reason I asked is because we were talking about readjusting the armature, and I didn't realize that you were also building the armatures when you were, I thought you were just mostly
Back in, I think, 75-ish, we did the Drake's bread commercial with dancing bread puppets. Bernie Farino made the armatures for me.
Nice.
I had done some, but I was still not that advanced. And then after that, I started making my own, but they were too expensive to have somebody else build. So you either learn to build them yourself or you don't do stop motions. It's like, okay, so a lot of nights I would get downstairs and work for 3 hours. I'd come up and my wife would go, how'd it go? And I'd go, well, a couple pieces came out okay, and a couple pieces, I would try to take the taller stand at just the right amount. And sometimes you would miss that right amount. So, okay, well, that was 2 hours wasted, but it's not wasted. No time is ever wasted.
Everybody has a purple ticket. So your purple tickets, that purple ticket is like a $10 bill. So when Rick goes back into his table over there, that's $10 off the price of his signed book. So if I suggest you take advantage of that, get all your money back tonight and put it towards the book. It's a special deal because it comes signed normally. You have to buy the book and then you have to pay to get it signed. So it's all, the signature's free. So take advantage of that ticket. We're going to move on to that part of the evening. Rick's going to be at his table. He has other things to sign and sell. and we'll get the food and the popcorn and the drinks going, and then we'll start the movie right around 8 o'clock. We can do a little later, give people time to get their books and stuff. So let's have a big hand for Rick.
Yeah, all right. Woo!
It's intermission time, folks. So hurry. Step right over to our refreshment center for the most extravagant array of refreshment goodies ever assembled under one roof. Enjoy breathtaking, mouth-watering goodies. Everything from a snack to a delicious whole meal. At our refreshment center, you can find a large variety of goodies to satisfy your hunger, your thirst, or your sweet tooth. So hurry. Visit our refreshment center now.
Here we go. Here's my chair. Oh, yeah. Here it is. Oh, yeah. Evil Dead 2 coming on soon.
Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Woo!